So, years after you grew up watching Michael Jackson and his brothers in the Jackson 5 perform at the Apollo, a full circle moment of sorts arrived for you with the call that came in 1990 you received from none other than the King of Pop, inviting you to come produce his 30 million selling Grammy winning Dangerous album, which also produced the album's biggest smash hit, Remember the Time. And where Atlantic would argue that perhaps its greatest achievement was in bridging the divide between R&B and hip hop, and where Rolling Stone importantly noted that Riley's tracks dramatically illustrate the versatility of his style, replacing Quincy Jones as Jackson's primary collaborator, an inspired selection that is the key to their finest moments. We would love to take viewers, as you do so vividly in the book, back inside the studio for what can only be described as a rare look at Michael Jackson in action recording his hits with you.
I get on the phone and Michael goes, "Hey." And I said, "Hey, Michael." Like I already knew him. This is my first time ever talking to him. He said, "Are you here?" And I said, "No. Was I supposed to be there?" He said, "Yeah, you're supposed to be here with me. We're working on the record." So I'm sitting there in the daze like flabbergasted about talking to Michael on the phone. So he started asking me a bunch of questions about music and a bunch of questions about, what am I doing today, which was 1991. He said, "What are you working on today? Like, what's your biggest, thing? Like, what are you doing? And is it for me?" I was in Q-Tip's room from Track Quest, and he let me borrow his room to make Remember the Time and all of those tracks that I made for Michael. 3 engineers, but I always had a girl there. I always had someone there to give me inspiration. It was always, to me, that experience that you can't get anywhere else. You can't, and the thing about it is not for sexual reasons, it's because women gives me the inspiration to come up because you can see how their body movement is steady enough. Let me tell you something. It was just if I didn't make a song on the album, if I didn't make the album, the point of the matter is I got to meet Michael. And that's the thing. But that was like the gravy, all the stuff that he said about me, it was just something that unless you were there, you would never believe. I couldn't tell my friends, Michael did this for me. He gave me this last weekend. He bought me a Rolex watch, or he did this for me. He bought me a whole new setup for my studio out in California, so when I come out there, I have a setup. Then I was very wealthy. I had all my stuff. I had like three racks of S3000s, S950s and 900s, and about 4 MPC 3060 and MPC 3000S, and I had Logic on an Atari computer, and I had bought 7 Atari computers because they go out on you. So I didn't want that to happen with me and Michael. So when Michael gave us our budget, he gave us a deposit of like, $100,000. It was just like, wow. Okay, what are we gonna do now? We're gonna go get the right equipment, and then I bought a rack system. I had this guy make me a rack system that was just like, it connected everything through MIDI, and man, it was just crazy. And he pulled me out of the room when I was working on Remember the Time, when I played the demo for him. I had just finished working in the studio on about 60 or 70 tracks. And on that track, which was the 5th track I played for him, all 5 he loved. I played Joy. Joy went to Blackstreet. There was an S90 or a D90, which gave me the beautiful strings on Remember the Time. And the D50, which is the D550. I had the D550 and the D50. And then I had, a lot of my rolling things that I used to do the Guy album, and Michael wanted that sound. So it just so happened that I always have that, and I had that in the bag. And those were the sounds that gave me the inspiration to come up with those songs. And Remember the Time help. He danced to it, but he stopped. He stopped the music and pulled me in the back. So that's what made me feel like either I'm going to get fired or scold or, or he was just wanting to know. And not what it was he wanted to know what were those chords. I remember the time. And I guess because he heard something that was really different in the chord progressions that he ever used, and that's what he said to me. Chords that you use are different from the chords that I would regularly use in my music. Everything is major or just straight minor, maybe a 7. When I was using the cliche chords that were augmented, 9s, and I was all into, I call them, New Jack chords, New Jack swing chords. He built me a bedroom in New York, in Hit Factory Studios. Had it done in 12 days. With the studio, they built a brand new studio. 12 days. It was almost like when he worked with Randy, and that's what he used to always say. You remind me so much of Randy. He would just come up with these clues, and sometimes he just doesn't know what he has. And he would feel the same way about me. Do you know what this is? I said, no, it's a track. It's a track for you. He said, this is genius. Vocally, he was amazing. His vocal arrangements, he goes in and tries stuff. He tries different background stuff, and when he goes into his leads, he's amazing. I was in another world. It's like no coming down. I was on a high of music. And Michael was a part of the inspiration as well, because I knew it was going on the greatest entertainer of all time.
Now, we understand that you, along with Emmanuel Lewis, had another special guest who joined you at one point in the studio to listen to what was going on. Specifically, Michael's famed pet chimpanzee, Bubbles.
Bubbles was amazing. He wasn't mean to me. He was actually loving to me because he feels Michael's heart and who Michael loves. He hung out in the studio. One time, Michael brought him in there because Michael felt like he would have felt some type of way of giving Ripley to me and not knowing who his son was going to. The actual chimp that Michael had gave to me, Ripley was the actual son of Bubbles. Michael gave him to me, but I couldn't take him back to Virginia because they didn't have the wild animal law in Virginia. You can't bring wild animals there as a pet. They didn't pass a law there to do that, so I couldn't bring him to Virginia. I had Ripley in my arms, and when Ripley hugged me and didn't want to let me go, that's when Bubbles felt like, wow, that's his true, father. It really saddened me, that I wasn't able to bring him and raise him.